Podcast Answer Man, episode number 366.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Hyatt from This Is Your Life and MichaelHyatt.com. You're listening to the man who has trained more people to podcast than anyone else on the planet. My friend Cliff Ravenscraft. He is the Podcast Answer Man.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to taking your message, your business, and your life to the next level. That's right, it doesn't matter if you're brand new to this online content creating world we live in, or if you've been doing this stuff for many years, there's something we can all do to take everything we do in life to the next level. That's right, my friends, taking things to the next level. And guess what I am doing this week? Yes, for the third week in a row, or is it the fourth? I'm not sure. I am taking my live streaming YouTube recording efforts to the next level. But guess what? I'm not going to spend the entire first portion of this episode talking about, what kind of things that I learned from last week's scenario and situation that happened in the video recording and posting to and publishing to YouTube. Instead, I am going to talk about that later in the show. What else are we going to talk about in this episode? Well, I have a list right here in front of me. The first topic that I'll get to in just a second here is how much money should I charge a sponsor for my podcast? I have a friend of mine who recently emailed me and said, "Hey, Cliff, I have somebody who wants to sponsor my show, but I have no idea how much to tell them." I'll share my thoughts as far as what I shared with him via the written back and forth response, and I may elaborate on some of that a little bit further here in this episode. Also, I am going to give you a little bit of an A to Z, podcasting A to Z promotion. And I know that I talk about podcasting A to Z quite a bit as far as, just letting you know the next one's coming up. But I'm going to go into a little bit of detail of why you might want to consider signing up for podcasting A to Z if you're on the fence. And also, I have a 3-minute testimonial from Anthony Tran. Now, hopefully that doesn't turn you off. If it does, guess what? Hopefully you have the ability, and you're pretty good at that little fast forward 30-second button. And you can hit that 6 times and pass that testimonial if you want to. But anyway, that's what we're going to talk about in this week's episode. And I just want to jump right in to the content today. How much money should I charge a sponsor for my podcast? Let's go into my notes here. A friend of mine recently sent me this message. This is word for word what was written. Except for the fact that I took out the name of the company and the name of the friend because I didn't get the permission. Well, actually, I did tell them I was going to talk about it. But anyway, you get the point. Anyway, here's what they wrote. I've been approached by an ad agency about advertising in my podcast. They have a client that's very targeted for my audience. So they're asking me for rate information. I have no idea what to quote them, as I've yet to have a sponsor for my show. Any idea what's fair based upon downloads or other metrics? Thanks. So here's what I wrote back to this individual. I said, well, first and foremost, this is not an easy answer or an easy question to answer. There really are no set standards for the industry of podcasting as a whole. Now, there used to be a group of people that got together. They created this thing called the ADM, the Association of Downloadable Media, and their desired goal from the beginning was trying to get all the podcasters to get together and agree on industry standards. And I don't know what happened to that organization. I was a member of it. I followed it. I never really participated, but I did follow all the things that were going on. And over the course of, I don't know, maybe a year or so, that association pretty much just disbanded. It fell apart. I don't know all the story there. Don't really care, to be honest with you. But the reality is that there today is still no set standard for this industry of how much money to charge people. So first of all, there are some folks out there who are hardcore on what we call the CPM model. And CPM, it stands for cost per mila, or cost per 1,000 downloads. And I'm not one of the people who are in that camp. I'm not a fan of the CPM model. This is actually borrowed from the radio industry and actually other advertising industries as well, or other industries where advertising is very popular. But this idea is that you pay per 1,000 views, pay per 1,000 listens, pay per 1,000 downloads. For every 1,000 people, we'll pay you, let's say, and by the way, the average is somewhere between $20 to $40 on average. Maybe, on the upper end, you can get $50 per 1,000. And maybe if you're lucky, you can get $60 or $70 per 1,000. But I haven't heard too many people get beyond that $60 or $70 level. And really, I only know 3 people who have achieved that status of $60 or $70 per 1,000 downloads. And those people all have 500,000 or more downloads per episode on average for their biggest show. So yeah, it's if you think about it, the CPM model, this cost per 1,000 model, only really matters. It only comes into play when you have a large audience. And when I say a large audience, I'm talking, 20,000, 50,000 or more subscribers. Because until then, you really don't see a lot of income coming from that. Now, I don't do math live on a podcast, but sometimes I do pick up my calculator here. And so let's just say we have $20 times 20,000 downloads. So that's one episode. Gets 20. So what is it? $20 times 20,000 downloads. Why did that not pull up? See, this is why I don't do math live. Let me figure this out here. Hold on one second. Okay, I got it. Okay, so $20,000 means, or downloads, is actually 20 of the 1,000. So you get 21,000 downloads. So you get 20,000 downloads. So it's 20 times $20. Is that right? 20 times $20 is 400. So so basically, if you have 20,000 downloads and you get paid $20 per 1,000, you're getting $400 per episode. Now, that's actually a pretty decent rate. But again, do you see how you have to get $400 per episode? You have to have 20,000 downloads. Now, if you have 10,000 downloads, then you're going to make obviously half that. You're going to make $200 per episode. Now, many of you who are listening to my voice, in fact, 99% of you don't have 10,000 downloads. You don't have 20,000 downloads. You don't have 50,000 downloads. You don't have 200,000 downloads. Instead, you are probably, and a majority of you have less than 1,000. Some of you have, 2,000 to 4,000, and some of you might have, 5,000 downloads per episode. And can I just say something to you? You can be an extremely successful podcaster in a narrow niche market where you are hardcore focused on a particular niche. And if you have 1,000 subscribers who listen to every single week of your show, you can make a living from that. I'm not kidding you. You can make a living from 1,000 hardcore, never miss an episode subscribers to your podcast. And I've seen it done by many people. Now, that doesn't, and by the way, I don't think that you're going to make a living from advertising only on your podcast. That is not going to be the only way that you make money with your 1,000 subscribers. There are going to be other ways to monetize that are better than this, or that will be more profitable anyway. So here's the deal. What if you had a podcast that was a targeted niche and you only had 1,000 subscribers? Well, I'm going to tell you that I have a family-based podcast that had a sponsor for 4.5 years, and I'm the one who ended the sponsorship, by the way. I'm the one who ended the sponsorship after 4.5 years. And the reason why I ended it is because the sponsorship had become so successful that they thought somebody out there was gaming the system, and they really did not understand new media marketing whatsoever. And when they were getting about $14,000 worth of sales in their online store using my promo code that I had developed over the years, that I had advertised over the years, they thought that maybe something was happening, that these people shouldn't be using, that this many people shouldn't be using this podcast or the promo code from this podcast. Well, what had happened was through the relationship that I had originally with the person I set it up with, I said, do you mind if we get this promo code in the hands of every single homeschool organization in the world? Can we get this into the newsletters? Do you mind if we promote this to people that are, that will use this, who will, because of this promo code being in the newsletter, they're going to make their purchases for their homeschool materials. They're going to make their purchases for their church organization. They're going to make their purchases for their ministry, for their Bible study. They're going to buy books from you instead of Amazon or instead of all these other sources or directly from the homeschool supplier themselves. They're going to come and use their promo code from your store because they're going to get a 10% discount, which is what you've offered to my audience. And they were very happy for the first 4.5 years. And well, some leadership changed. I believe they had a different CEO or at least the second person down in the company. And they took the marketing efforts away from the person I had a relationship with, moved it over to the marketing department, and the marketing department says, you know what? We want to change your promo code every 30 days. And I'm like, you don't understand. I have hundreds and hundreds of episodes. The promo code's been, it's taken me this long to get this promo code put into the newsletters of all these organizations, and now you want me to try to get that to be changed, and you're telling me that all these people who have been told that you can get 10% off, all of a sudden every 30 days the promo code that they'd been given, that promo code's no longer going to work. So this doesn't work. Many times over the course of, let's just say, 6 months, over half of the downloads of that podcast may happen 4 weeks after that podcast or after that promo code has expired. So people listen to the episode and say, here's our current promo code. And boom, you're telling me that if they go online because it was 4 weeks later, it got ridiculous. They came back and, tried to negotiate. And finally I said, you know what, this is, you guys, obviously this is a whole different relationship, a whole different leadership than what we had over the last 4.5 years. I want to tell you that you guys have been amazing. I will always have wonderful things to say about you guys, but I think it's time for us to end this relationship. So that's what happened. And by the way, that podcast had there were times when it hit somewhere around 1,500 subscribers. And there were times when it hit 1,800, and when I'm talking about downloads every single week. But most of the time, this podcast, ever since it has existed, and by the way, we just recorded our 306th episode today. But on average, this podcast has had approximately an average of 1,000 subscribers. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much money they were paying me, but I will tell you from the very beginning of that sponsorship, we charged them a flat fee per episode. All right. And what I can tell you is I've never charged less than $200 per episode. So let's just assume the lowest that it could have possibly cost them is $200. So if the lowest it could possibly cost them was $200, that's $200 per 1,000 downloads. Okay. Now, do you understand if you think about this on a CPM model? What I just told you is that for 4.5 years, I had a sponsor that was paying me $200 CPM. But no, that is not what I had. What I had was $200 per episode, regardless if anything was sold whatsoever. Now, obviously, and one of the things that I negotiated was that it was a minimum of 6 months for a contract. And as a result of having a minimum of 6 months, it gave me time to warm up my audience to this particular sponsor, to this company. And as a result of that, over the course of 6 months, it finally started to really take off. Now, the company that I was sponsoring with, that I had as a sponsor, they were relatively brand new to the online world. Now, they were a very big Christian bookstore, and when it came to their retail stores, they were among the biggest in the industry, probably the best, I would even say. And they were, I think they had 5 states that you could visit their stores. And when they went online, when they created an online version of their store where you could order from anywhere in the world and have the stuff shipped, the first thing that they wanted when they came to me for their sponsorship was brand awareness. It wasn't necessarily our goals related to the sponsorship weren't tied to dollar figures. They were tied to brand awareness. And well, my friends, over the course of a 4.5 year period of time, pretty much anybody who was on any newsletter related to anything related to homeschooling was aware that when it comes time to buy your homeschool supplies, promo code GSPN gets you this. And not only that, but they have, there was an announcement every year, I think once or twice a year, where they had their homeschool sale. And not only would you get whatever, I think 20% off of their homeschool supplies, you got an additional 10% off with our thing. Now, this wasn't actually costing them money, but it was certainly driving a ton of sales their way, and sales that would not have happened if it weren't for my sponsorship with them. And let me just share with you some sales figure numbers just to give you an idea of 1,000 subscribers to Family from the Heart. And I'm going to just do my thing here, and give me 1 second. I'm going to pause while I pull up the numbers here. Okay, so I've brought up my numbers here. Now, again, remember that they're paying somewhere around or more, a minimum of $200 per episode, because I don't charge anything less than $200 per episode. Now, I'm going to start in, I'm going to go back to, let's just say, July of 2010, and I'm going to read to you monthly sales numbers, all right? They're paying me, $200 or more per episode. There are 4 episodes per month. So basically, let's just say a minimum of $800 per month for their sponsorship. July of 2010, I have 1,000 subscribers, 167 orders, or $8,101.02 in sales. August 2010, 188 orders, $6,163.62. And then it was September 2010, there were only 99 orders, but it was still $3,603 in sales. Now, let me go October 2010, 3,638, there were 102 orders. November, now, of course, we're starting to get into Christmas time, right? So November, 205 orders, $7,289 in sales. And of course, Christmas time comes around. Stephanie and I are really pushing the Christmas stuff. December 2010, 394 orders using our promo code with $4,292.77 in sales. Now, the averages continued to grow. I'm going to take you to November 2011. There were 321 orders for $11,323 in sales. And in December 2011, 496 orders with $18,465 in sales. And what I will do is the last 4 months that I had my sponsorship with this company, all right, it was April 2012, May 2012, June 2012, July 2012. These are the last 4 months that I had them. And by the way, this is when I finally broke through and got into even the biggest of the big homeschool newsletters with our promo code. So April 2012, 239 orders, $14,203.68 in sales. May 2012, 336 orders. And the sales that month were $22,156.90. June 2012, 200 orders, $12,200 $245.55 in sales. And then the final month I had them as a sponsor was July 2012, 719 orders for $40,302.64. And because we had gone to $40,000 in sales and the marketing team didn't get it, they said, there's something wrong here. Yeah. I've been working my butt off trying to get this thing happening for you guys. So basically what I'm telling you, and by the way, the entire time I never once raised my rate. So the amount that they paid me per episode from the beginning all the way through to the end was always the same. I never once raised my rates, but let me tell you, I could have. And by the way, I can tell you this. I do know, now that I think about it, the company did not have a new CEO, but they did have some new management over the marketing end of things. I can tell you this, that this company did have a change in CEO since then. Okay, so there is a new CEO of this. And the CEO contacted me one day and says, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm the new CEO of this company. And by the way, I've heard a lot of things about you. We're thinking about doing a podcast for our company. And we've been told that, we had some sort of relationship with you and you're the go-to guy to talk to about setting a podcast. We want to, we've got a connection with all the top authors and all the top Christian artists. And we think it'd be great to do a podcast." And I said, "I think that'd be great too. I'd be happy to help you." And I said, it sounds to me like you're aware that there was some relationship, but I wonder if you actually know what the relationship was. And I explained to him, that we had this, and he did some research, and he actually asked me, "Cliff, can we become your sponsor again? Why did this end?" And I explained to him why it ended. And I said, to be honest with you, I'm not looking for a sponsor at this time. So, that's how things have went. But anyway, so why do I share all that with you? Because I'm telling you that I can have a podcast that is about my wife, that is nothing more than my wife and I getting behind a microphone and talking about our life in a very transparent and authentic way. And we can have only 1,000 subscribers. And that's a stupid phrase to say. We can have an amazing 1,000 listenership to that podcast. And if with 1,000 subscribers, not more than that, which, by the way, 1,000 is a small army. Okay, I'm not kidding you. Have you ever been at a conference with 1,000 people in one room? That's huge. It's massive. You can change the world with 1,000 people who follow you, and I do mean that. And so we had 1,000 subscribers, not 10,000, not 5,000, not 20,000, not 50,000. But we had 1,000 subscribers, and we were able to get to the place where, on average, we were generating between 14,000 and we got up into the up to $40,000 in sales for this company that was our sponsor, and it consistently was going up and up and up as we continued to get the word out about how much we loved that company. And so there's a lot of value. And by the way, is that a narrowly niche market that Family from the Heart was doing? No, it wasn't. It was not all of those 1,000 people were Christian. Therefore, not all 1,000 of those people were interested in buying their Christian books and movies and DVDs and music and stuff like that from my sponsor. However, I do know that over 65% of them were Christian, and I knew that of those 65%, a lot of them had leadership positions of some nature within Christian organizations. I just happen to know that, and that's what made it that desirable to have a spot, for them to be able to get their message out. First, it was for brand recognition or name recognition, and then later it became, a little bit more focused on delivering sales, and we achieved both very successfully, and I will tell you, it huge success for me. I will share with you another example. All right, and again, I'm not going to share exact dollar figures with you, But again, I can tell you that I've never accepted a sponsorship for less than $200 per episode. So I decided I wanted to create a podcast for virtual assistants. This is back in 2010. And I had hired my first virtual assistant. She had found me as a result of a tweet. And Andrea's still my assistant today. It's been, it's been since 2010, March of 2010, I think. Anyway, I was so enthralled with, just learning how to become more effective, delegating work to a virtual assistant. What's it like? How is it to actually, what kind of things do you delegate to them? And I was thinking, do I share that in Podcast Answer Man, or do I create a podcast specifically for that topic? And so I decided I wanted to create a podcast specifically for that topic. And I went, and by the way, my assistant at the time was working for a company called Contemporary VA. And I went to them and I asked Andrea, my assistant, I said, Andrea, I'd like you to set me up a call. I would like to have a call with the CEO of your company to talk to them about an advertising opportunity. Now, here's the thing. I want to tell you this first and foremost. I already at this time, even by 2010, I was well established with my online reputation for having an audience of people who are very much into, building online businesses and entrepreneurs and stuff like this. Podcast Answer Man had already had, I don't know by how many episodes by that time, but certainly more than 100, I'm sure. And I had also had Business Tech Weekly and a lot of other podcasts that were very popular. And so I had already established my place as an authority in the area of business, online, entrepreneurial pursuits. And I was able to communicate that clearly to my potential sponsor, which, by the way, I do want to let you guys know, I consider myself to be an expert in the area of sales and marketing. I really do. I feel like I'm very gifted naturally in the area of selling things. All right. So one of the things that I can tell you in all of this story about how much do you charge a sponsor, a lot of it comes down to how well can you sell your value. And it comes a lot down to your confidence level. What is your confidence level in the amount of value that you have? And a lot of you are actually struggling with how valuable you are to a potential sponsor. And for those of you who are really struggling with that, I encourage you to read the book Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's a quick read. Even for me, it was a quick read. And it will help you understand the value that you have to an advertiser or a sponsor when you spend all of your time developing a relationship with a community of people around a narrowly niche target industry or a field of interest. So anyway, Andrea says, listen, Cliff, I don't know that, she'll be interested in talking with you. She's a very hard person to sell. I just want to give you a warning. I said, Andrea, the only thing I'm asking you to do is set me up the appointment. Let them know that I'd like to talk to them. And she says, okay, I'll see what I can do. And she did. She was able to get it. And so I got on the phone. I got on via, actually, yeah, it was the phone. No, actually I did. I got on via the phone and I had everything queued up, ready to go. One of the things that I did is I went to Podcast Answer Man, this podcast, and I said, hey guys, you guys have heard I've actually hired a virtual assistant. And a lot of you are very interested in learning on how that's going and what kind of work am I delegating to my virtual assistant and what kind of software tools am I using to manage things? How am I accounting for time? And you've got all kinds of questions and I've got all kinds of answers because I'm going through this process right now. I want to create a new podcast. I'm thinking about creating a new podcast, but I'm only going to do it if I can confirm that there's enough of you out in this audience who are interested in this topic. Because if not, then I'm wasting my time. But my assumption is that you guys are going to be interested in this. And here's how you can tell me that you're interested. Here's how you can leave a voice message for this new podcast. If I get at least 10 voicemails with 10 different questions related to related to having a virtual assistant, then I will create this podcast. Well, can you guess what happened? Because of my established relationship already with Podcast Answer Man, and knowing that my audience is very much entrepreneurs and they're very intrigued by this concept of having a virtual assistant, I got lots of voicemails. So I got on with the CEO of the company and I said, listen, I have not yet started this podcast, but let me explain to you the podcast that I have done. And let me tell you about my audience. And let me tell you about my ability to communicate the value and the things that are working well for me and how my audience responds and the amount of influence that my thoughts carry in particular areas. And just to give you an idea, 2 weeks ago, I announced that I might create a podcast related to virtual assistants. And I told folks I would only do it if I could actually answer their questions. And I wanted to see if they had any. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to play for you a couple of questions that have come in. Now, these questions were anywhere between 30 seconds to 90 seconds in length. And I said, I ask you to bear with me. I am going to play 5 of these for you back to back without any commentary from me. And I have everything, of course, set up on my phone or on my computer that go through my telephone interface at the time. And she heard all of these voicemails of the 5 that I played back to back. And they were 5 absolutely mission critical questions that you needed to know that if you really could get the answer to these questions, you certainly would hire a virtual assistant. And of course, after I played those questions for her, I said, now let me tell you something. In 2 weeks, I'm going to launch the podcast called Virtual Assistant Podcast. I do not have the website yet, although I own the domain. I do not have the RSS feed set up. I don't have a single subscriber to this podcast yet. But when I do, I would imagine that I'll immediately have about 400 or 500 people who will subscribe to this podcast. And over the course of the next however many years, there literally will be thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who will ultimately listen to this. It may not be within the next 6 months, but it will be within the next, couple years, thousands upon thousands, and they will always hear this. And I said, here's the deal. I'm going to answer these questions. And I have 2 options. Option number 1 is that I tell my audience in every episode that the answers to the questions that they're getting is because of the benefit. It is strictly due to the benefit of having the sponsor that we do, your company, Contemporary VA, and that I personally have an assistant through Contemporary VA, and how thrilled I am with how things are going. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is that I answer their questions. I do the podcast every week, and I give 1 episode away for free, and I charge them as a part of my Plus membership for access to the other 3 episodes every month, which, by the way, I don't do that anymore. But if you know my history, I used to have this thing called Plus membership, which was a premium subscription model, which, ultimately was generating $28,000 back in, I think it was 2010. I made $28,000 from Plus membership. But anyway, I shut all that down. But back at the time, this was the option. I said, so tell me which of these 2 options. And so she had a bunch of questions, but I certainly had piqued her interest. She was not ready to commit to 6 months, which is my minimum. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm confident. I'm so confident in this that you'll be begging me to renew. I'll tell you what, if you agree to 3 months, I'll do it at this rate. And I'm only going to charge this much per episode. Now, again, I won't tell you the exact dollar amount, but I never charge less than $200. And I will tell you, so let's just assume that it's $200, the lowest that it could possibly be. I want to tell you that I successfully negotiated a $200 or more per episode sponsorship for a podcast that did not yet exist. And I will tell you that during I did it for 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, they certainly renewed. At the end of 3 more months, they renewed again. And at the end of those 3 months, I had done 38 episodes. And after 9 months of doing 38 weeks back to back of answering people's questions on virtual assistant, I kind of lost my passion for it. Not that I lost my passion for having a virtual assistant, but I kind of lost my passion for answering questions. It kind of got, to the place where I'm like, I'm done talking about this. Everything that I have to say about virtual assistants, it has been said. It's at virtualassistantpodcast.com. And by the way, guys, go check it out. Now, can I tell you that both with Family from the Heart and with Virtual Assistant Podcast, I never shared my download numbers with either sponsor. And by the way, I didn't tell you that when I negotiated the relationship that I had, when I negotiated the sponsorship for Family from the Heart, they started with episode number 2. Episode number 1 was put online and had been sitting there for a while. And I said, we're only going to create this podcast when we feel like there's a need to do so. And basically, once again, Family from the Heart, when I arranged for that, sponsorship, that flat fee per episode, there were no subscribers to it. There was no content being created on a weekly basis at that time either. What was going on was, my experience in podcasting and my confidence in the value that I could deliver to my sponsor, and therefore that's what I sold them on. And they, by the way, were very pleased. Obviously, the other company was there for 4.5 years. I ended the relationship. And also with this one, Contemporary VA, they came to me at 38. After 38 episodes, I said, go ahead, guys, I've done as much as I'm going to do. And they begged me to continue. They said, Cliff, if you need help with content, we'll take over the content. We'll take over the creation of what content. Will you still host the show on a weekly basis? They offered to pay me more money per episode. And I said, no. I said, I'm done with this. Then they literally begged me to buy the podcast. Can we purchase this podcast from you? What is the dollar amount that we have to pay you to buy this podcast, the domain virtualassistantpodcast.com, the RSS feed that comes along with all the subscribers that you've developed over and all the former content that you've created? And I said, it's not for sale. And the reason why is because, number one, I want to maintain the ownership of that archive of the evergreen content. And by the way, today, I'm going to virtualassistantpodcast.com. That podcast has not had a brand new episode since December 30th, 2010. And today, each episode, all 38 episodes of that podcast, averages about 100 new downloads every single month, even today. That is, 4 years later, almost 4 years later, and it still downloads over 100 new it still gets over 100 new downloads, or over 1,200 downloads per year. So literally thousands of people. And not only that, but I get emails all the time from people who say, Cliff, I've been listening to your podcast, Answer Man podcast. I'm ready to sign up for your podcasting A to Z course. When is your next session? I'm so eagerly anticipating the launch of this next A to Z course. I've been listening to your podcast, Answer Man Show. And by the way, I originally found you about 6 months ago as a result of a search for help on virtual assistants. And the first thing that introduced me to you was your Virtual Assistant podcast. I listened to all 38 episodes in about 2 weeks. And then after that, I had become such a fan of yours, I started looking for the other content. And of course, in the last couple episodes, you had said you were shutting down the show and you encouraged us to check out Podcast Answer Man. And I've been a loyal listener and devoted fan since then. This thing is still driving me business on a consistent basis. And by the way, I just saw on Twitter this week, somebody says, hey, Cliff, I found your Virtual Assistant podcast, and I just want to let you know, I just hired my first assistant through Contemporary VA. And by the way, I can tell you that Contemporary VA, when they were the sponsor of my podcast for the 38 weeks that they were, for the 38 episodes that I did, at one point they came to me and said, Cliff, can you do us a favor and stop promoting us as a virtual assistant firm that you can hire a virtual assistant for the next couple weeks, but can you do a couple episodes on what it takes to become a VA? Because we're overwhelmed with new requests. We've ran out of VAs because your podcast has generated that much interest in our business, and all of our contracted VAs are fully booked. And basically what happened was I started to do like 3 or 4 or 5 episodes on what it takes to be a VA. And as a result of that, guess what? It completely flooded their training program with all these new VAs. Literally, people who are listening to my podcast were actually bringing additional income into their homes where it had not existed before because of my podcast. And as a result of that, they asked me to go ahead and start promoting once again. And so not only were my listeners clients of Contemporary VA, but they became employees, and therefore it's crazy. It's a whole long story, but I tell you, it was great. So I'm not opposed to having sponsors. And by the way, Podcast Answer Man, I get probably about 5 requests. I get more than this, but I get about 5 serious inquiries per year on Podcast Answer Man for a sponsor. And every single time I say no. The most serious one was, and by the way, I told all of them, I said, I won't do CPM, and I won't tell you what my number of downloads are. I can tell you about my influence. I can tell you about, I can show you things. I can show you my experience with prior sponsors, and I can get a signed affidavit or whatever, notarized letter of recommendation and testimony that all the facts and figures that I've shared with you are true from those prior sponsors. I can show you all kinds of things, but I will not give you download numbers, and I will not. In fact, one of the stipulations is that I would require that you show me the actual response. You're going to give me a promo code. You're going to give me a link that you're tracking. You're going to be tracking your sales numbers. You're going to be tracking this, and you're going to report that to me on a monthly basis. And by the way, I will require that, because if I don't have that, I won't know where I'm hitting the mark and where I'm falling short. And so I need you to do the tracking. And I think the most serious one that I had was $2,000 per episode. So there are 4 episodes of Podcast Answer Man per month. And so, I have had I've had 5 people who have offered me $8,000 per month to sponsor Podcast Answer Man. And I've turned down all of those. And the reason why is because they are competitors of products and services that I use. I don't use them myself, and there's no real reason other than the money that I would switch to them. And because of that, I just don't feel good about it. It just didn't work out for me. So I do have serious people who come to me and offer serious money for sponsoring Podcast Answer Man, but I really would only do it with folks who are, companies that I use on a consistent basis. And well, anyway, so I stopped reading to you my response, but now that I've given you all of that, let me finish reading what I wrote to this person. I said, okay, so basically, remember, this person says, I've been approached by an ad agency about advertising in my podcast. They have a client that's very targeted for my audience. They're asking me for rate information. I have no idea what to quote them. As of yet, I have yet to have a sponsor for my show. Any idea on what's fair based on downloads or other metrics? Thanks. So now with that, I am going to attempt to read my response to you without any commentary. I'm just going to read to you what I wrote to this person. I said, this is not an easy question to answer. There are no real standards. Okay, there are some folks who are hardcore on the CPM or cost per 1,000 download model. However, I'm not in that camp. I feel it almost needs to come down to a negotiation of what would be a win-win-win for all 3 parties involved. And when I'm talking about those 3 parties, I am speaking about you, then your audience, and then your advertiser. However, all 3 must win and profit from this sponsorship. Not just 2, not just 1, but all 3. Okay, so I did give you some commentary. Anyway, this person wrote back. He says, okay, that's great to know. Makes perfect sense, and I agree. I have 0 idea what other podcasters are charging. I think what I'll do for now is email them my stats, which are download numbers, and then tell them that we can discuss rate details on the phone if they're interested once they see my stats. And this is what I wrote back. Never start with stats. Instead, explain clearly who your audience is and your relationship with them. Explain that these folks are highly targeted niche audience. They're a highly targeted niche audience that are 100% interested in the exact topic for which you podcast about, and that they listen to you every single week, and that they know, like, and trust you. This is extremely valuable to them. This is not broadcasting. It's narrowcasted. For them, it is extremely targeted marketing, and you are someone who has a great deal of influence with their target market. If you start with the numbers, you are doomed. My thoughts on CPM, cost per thousand, it only makes sense if you are in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or thousands of thousands. Basically, if you don't have 5 to 10,000 people downloading your show every single week, which, by the way, a majority of you listening to my voice, you don't. I mean, you just don't. It's not a big deal. 500, 800, 1,000, 1,500, 2,500 downloads, 5,000 downloads. Those are all wonderful audiences, and you do have a lot of value if you have that many people who are downloading your show every single week. And how much do you charge them? Wow. That is not something that I can easily answer for you. It is a difficult question to answer, and the reality is that it has to be, how much is the product that they're selling? How much of it does it have to? How much of that do they have to sell for it to make sense to pay you? And if the product is like $5 per, $5 for their product, well, if you got all, let's just say you have 1,000 downloaders. If you were able to get 100% of the people in your audience to purchase the product, it's probably not going to be the greatest fit for a sponsor. The more costly the services or the products of the sponsor, the better it is going to be for you and to get a win, and for your sponsor to get a win. And of course, the only way these high-priced, and by the way, we're talking, a virtual assistant, by the way, is getting, for them to hire somebody, it's, right around $22, $28, $30, maybe $35 per hour, and, signing up for a retainer for 20 to 30 hours per 20 to 30 hours per month. Guaranteed. So it's something that you're committing to, and you're committing for a 1-year period of time with a 30-day, ability to, cancel if you want to with written notice. So anyway, it's a large commitment. But the thing is I knew from experience that it was a valuable thing for me, and I knew that those who were serious about it would be valuable for them. And so, it was easier for me to negotiate something like a $200 or more per episode sponsorship with somebody like that, because gosh, if they just get X number of people. And also I was able to convince them and communicate to them that, listen, this sponsorship, it's going to go on for years. Even though once we end our sponsorship, you won't have to be paying me anymore. But today, I would say they're probably still getting 50 to 100 new clients every year. And I know that to be a fact. 50 to 100 new clients every single year since I ended my promo with them, or my relationship with them. So kind of keep that in mind. This is so much more valuable than CPM. All right. And so, yeah, just keep that in mind. That's my thinking. Now, I told you with 1,000 people in your audience, you can make a living if you have a narrow niche target field of interest. And you can. Now, are you going to make all your money from your $800 or $1,600 or $2,400 or $2,500, $5,000 a month sponsorship? No, you're not. If you're into business, by the way, you're not. Some of you who are employed full time, you're thinking, boy, I'd love to have an extra $3,000 per month. Well, when you're running a business and overhead and paying your business paying for your health insurance, you start thinking in bigger numbers when it comes to how do you become profitable and still pay yourself a reasonable amount. And then you see you need somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 a month of somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a month of income minimum to be able to operate a business and pay yourself and stuff. So with all of that, you think, well, how do I make money? Advertising alone isn't going to cut it unless you have $5,000 at the low end. Gosh, and that's still not going to be enough to pay you that much money. So you'd have to hit the 20,000 or the 30,000, the 10, 20, or 30,000 or more downloads or more subscribers to your podcast. And that's probably not going to happen for most of you. And nor do I think you should be shooting for those numbers. Although my gosh, I'd be happy to have, 100,000 subscribers to Podcast Answer Man. But I'm not shooting for those numbers. I'm fine right where I'm at. And have I ever told you in this podcast where I'm at? No. All I can tell you is that I have thousands of subscribers. And I do have thousands of subscribers, but that's all I'm going to tell you. What I can tell you is that with my podcast last year, my business made over $500,000 in revenue, and my personal income was $279,000. And you can see that, confirm it at podcastanswerman.com/income. So what I will tell you is there are other ways to do this. How do you do that? You can actually, if you're in a narrow niche focus, you can have sponsors. I think sponsors are great. I don't have them on this podcast because I found more profitable ways to make money than through advertising. Those ways include affiliate commissions. For example, let me just go ahead right now and say thank you to homeschoolsupport.net. Thank you to zbfproductions.com. That's two. Thank you to it's actually rosinepr.com. That's three. Kingdom Game Changers with a Z.com. That's four. Launchedlife.com. That's five. Bald's Ordinary Life. That's six. And shhq.tv, that's seven. 7 people who recently used my Bluehost affiliate link to sign up for their hosting account. If you want all of my thoughts on hosting, you can go to podcastanswerman.com/hosting. Again, that's podcastanswerman.com/hosting. Now, I will not tell you exactly how much money I'm making per subscription to that, but I always tell you that I have an extremely generous commission. And I think that if you sign up for them directly and you become a Bluehost affiliate, you know that I think you get $65 at starting out, and $65 times 7. So that was just, if I made the minimum of what they charge or what they pay, I would have made $455 extra over the past week for those 7 people who used my affiliate code. Now, what I can tell you is that I make significantly more than $65 per referral, and that's because I have an extended amount of time that I've been with them. I send them lots of referrals on a consistent basis for many years, and I was able to negotiate a much higher commission rate. And so I can tell you right now that I make quite a bit more than $456. And I do mean quite a bit more than $456. So that's a profitable thing for me. And it takes time to build those things up, but it can. There are other affiliate relationships that I have with Libsyn, which, by the way, real quickly, let me just give you a little bit of information about Libsyn. Because there is a little confusion, I guess, lately. They did change the way that they do their uploads, and everybody's upload account starts at the beginning of every month. So let me just read this to you from Libsyn. They said, hey, by the way, one of the questions we still see quite often from those signing up for an account is how long they get free with the use of your promo code, which, by the way, my promo code with Libsyn is GSPN. Stands for Generally Speaking Production Network. Anyway, if you use promo code GSPN, I've always told people you get the first month free. So anyway, it says here, your promo code GSPN will give new, and by the way, it has to be new Libsyn users, the remainder of the current month free and all of the next month free. So by the way, if somebody signed up on July 3rd, they would get the rest of July and all of August for free, and they would not be charged until September 1st. Now, they are required to give us a valid credit card information when they sign up, but they will not be charged until the first month after that. So basically, if they signed up to July 3rd, they would not be charged until the 1st of September, per the example above. However, if a user, by the way, this real clear here. However, if a user changes their account level, such as they move up to a higher program or a lower program, they will be charged from that point forward. They cannot change their account level during the free period from what they signed up with. So if they're not sure what to sign up with, tell them to sign up for the highest level and then change it to the lower level just before the end of their full free month. Also note, if a user cancels their account before the end of the first partial month, then their account will end that month. In the example above, if they canceled any time in the month of July, their account will close down at the end of July. If they want to cancel but get the month of August in the example month, they need to wait until after August 1st to cancel. Please make this clear in your communication with your listeners, please. All right, so there you go. So obviously, and by the way, when you sign up for an affiliate, when you sign up for an account with Libsyn, I do get a commission for that. And it's not nearly as much as other affiliate relationships that I have, but guess what? It's a service that I use, and it's a service that you guys, I recommend that you use yourself. And you know, it's nothing worth sneezing at. I do get a nice check every 3 to 6 months, and I'm very happy to have it. But more than anything, before I had an affiliate relationship with Libsyn, I sent hundreds upon hundreds of clients to them anyway, and I would even if they didn't give me the affiliate relationship. And pretty cool, you get the first month free. So anyway, there's that. Let me go ahead and start playing this music. So yeah, I've got 3.5 minutes. Real quickly, let me just share with you my live stream update from last week. By the way, if you want to hear my push for my podcasting A to Z course, I am going to still do that. I'll do it right after this music ends. But if you don't want to hear my advertisement for my own podcasting A to Z course, then you can stop. That's fine. Anytime. But anyway, my live stream update last week, I did have an audio sync issue. For whatever reason, the Ustream producer software did record everything just fine. The MOV file, the audio was synced great. Or actually, it was an MP4 file. I uploaded it to YouTube, and for whatever reason, YouTube, when they processed it, caused a horrible lip sync issue. I mean, the audio was at least a second off. So I went ahead and deleted that. Now, I went and looked at the file again, the MP4 file on my computer, and it was in sync. So I think it had something to do with the settings for the iMic that I had inside of the Ustream producer. Probably the sample rate was mismatched or something. Well, anyway, the recording looked fine on my computer, so I said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up in ScreenFlow. I opened it up in ScreenFlow, exported it out as an MOV file, knowing that if it looked great in ScreenFlow, it should be fine with YouTube, because I use ScreenFlow for exporting all the time with these settings, and it processes fine. So I did that, and so lo and behold, it uploaded to YouTube, fixed the syncing issue, and it was perfectly fine. But it did add a lot of extra time last week. Anyway, I had hoped to play around with it a little bit more this week, and this week I had some more issues setting things up in the live studio. Finally worked it out. I had an issue where my Canon Vixia HFG10, instead of sending the audio, let me turn this down. There we go. Instead of sending the audio inside of into the Griffin iMic, since I didn't have a chance to play around with the sample rate and test it and see if it would work and upload samples and stuff, I said, you know what? I wonder if the settings are just fine by default with the Canon Vixia camera. So I'm going to send the audio directly into that. Well, then I had a ground loop noise, and it was really horrible. And finally I got in there, and it turns out that I had to go in and change a setting. Let me tell you what it was. It was the mic terminal input setting was switched to mic, and I had to switch it over to line, and then all of a sudden it got rid of that noise problem. Anyway, so today I have perfect lighting in the studio. I have amazing audio on the live stream. Guaranteed there is no lip sync issue on the live stream right now. Things are going extremely well. By the way, she's going to sing here in just a second, I think. Oh, wait, she does that at... when does she does that? She does it at 16 seconds. You know what? I'm going to go a little bit over. Is that cool with you guys? Here she comes.
Helping you to get the thing you do to the next level.
Anyway, so just a little extra bonus here. I promise I'm almost done. Anyway, so today I have everything set up perfectly. I'm going to see if now that I'm sending the audio in through the camera, that it exports. I know it's going to export just fine, or it's going to have a great recording on my desktop or on my laptop. And then I'm going to upload it to YouTube today, and hopefully that's going to be all it takes, and that when it processes on YouTube, the sample rate from the audio capture from the camera is already set perfectly, and so therefore my lip sync issue is not going to be an issue in YouTube. If so, then I'll have to do the whole ScreenFlow export, re-encode the video using ScreenFlow again this week, and I'll do some more testing on it sometime within the next 7 days, hopefully. Anyway, with all of that being said, Gideon Showick said last week on my YouTube video, he says, Cliff, I recommend that you use YouTube Live instead of Ustream. Then it will record straight into YouTube, so no more need to record Ustream and then upload to YouTube. And so, I've been thinking about that since last week, and here are a couple thoughts. Number one, YouTube Live does seem like a great option for me to consider, and I am considering it. Part of me is wanting to use Ustream because of my long-standing relationship with them. Until my relationship is changed in that I start getting tons of advertising on my live stream, then I'm going to continue to use them and promote what I've experienced over the years. I've been with Brad ever since, Brad's one of the co-founders of the company. I've been with him since he first launched the company, and I have a really good relationship with them. And so I don't want to leave because of that. And then also, I just accidentally purchased the Ustream Producer Studio version of their software, which is $199, made by Telestream, by the way. And, I'm kind of glad that I made that accidental purchase, because it did start to get me serious about broadcasting in HD and looking better. And I'm getting about 490, right around 500 views per episode of this on Ustream. On YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And I'm getting some good feedback from people that don't normally listen to the audio. Still, that's not the thousands that listen to the audio every week, but still, it's kind of nice to be on there. I will tell you, though, I am actually now wishing that I would have purchased the whole Wirecast from Telestream instead of just the Ustream Producer Studio. Anyway, Wirecast Studio is $495. That's their least expensive version of their software. Looks to me like you have to pay an extra $99 to be able to do HD video, which is crazy. But okay, so it's actually, let's just say it's it's not $500, it's $600. Or they have Wirecast Pro, which is $1,000. And, I don't know which one of those I need, but probably I'll need to go to one of those. I actually have a really good relationship with Telestream because of all the sales, affiliate sales that I've done of ScreenFlow software. So who knows? I may be able to contact some folks over there and see what I can work out. But I do wish I would have bought Wirecast instead of this Ustream Pro version. I'll get all that worked out. And Gideon, thank you for making that recommendation. By the way, my friend Daniel told me, hey, yes, Cliff, I think you can use, or he says you can use Google Hangouts on Air to go to YouTube Live, but I really don't want to do that. To be honest with you, I'd rather just not. I don't like Google Plus. I'm just not a fan. Anyway, I also, although I may check that out, just in all fairness, I may look into that. Also, I do like the ability to stream live and manually hit the record button locally to start the recording when I want without stopping and restarting the stream with my live audience. So maybe, and by the way, maybe I'll be able to do that with YouTube Live, but right now I'm able to be broadcasting and I can just hit the record button when I want it to record and hit stop. And I don't have to actually, stop the actual stream, because after I'm done recording, sometimes I will interact with my audience. And so anyway, I do like the fact that, there's this local recording. And by the way, I like the local recording. of this. Now, I realized I could probably go into my video manager and download the MP4 file or the video file from YouTube. I'd have to look into that, but I'm pretty sure I might be able to do that because I think I'm going to keep an archive of these video recordings as well eventually. So we'll see. Anyway, what other thoughts that I had here? Oh, I'll certainly be contacting Telestream to discuss it further. And for right now, I'm happy with my relationship with Ustream. It's because I made the accidental purchase of $200 for this Ustream Pro that did get me in here, or Ustream Studio, that I'm using right now. And it's what's got me started on this journey of actually starting to record these things and upload them to YouTube. And it's not if this works today, then I probably won't even look into the other method right away, or maybe I will. But anyway, so that's what's going on there. And here comes this is my landscaping company. So I'm going to pause and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. And so that was my landscaper. They're, on our new home, they're finally coming to install our landscaping, and they're actually going to email me a plan of what our landscaping might look like to get it approved. But anyway, last thing that I have, and then I'm done. I'm finished. Last thing I want to say is my podcasting A to Z course. My next podcasting A to Z course is coming up on Monday, September 1st. Now, the only place so far that I've actually done any marketing for this course, for this session of the course, is in this podcast. I have not yet sent emails to the folks who are on my warm follow-up list. These are the people who said, Cliff, I can't make it to June, but tell me when your next one is. The one in this fall, I'm definitely in. Those kind of people. I have about 30 people on that list, and I have not emailed any of those people yet. They will be emailed soon. And then I haven't sent an email out to my overall mailing list yet of people who I normally get quite a few signups from. But even with that, I've already got 8 students registered for the September course. And that's pretty exciting. And that tells me that this course is definitely going to sell out. But for those of you who are on the fence, thinking about podcasting A to Z, let me tell you, you should sign up. If you are on the fence, you should sign up. So that means you've gone to podcastingatoz.com. Again, podcastingatoz.com, and you've watched the video at the top, and you've read all of the stuff that's on the page, and hopefully you've scrolled all the way to the bottom, and you've read all of the tutorials, all the little things that people have said about the course. And let me just say this: a lot of people have said after they've gotten into the course and after the course, it's like, man, I read all those things you said you were going to do. And I'm thinking, how can he deliver all of that in 4 weeks? And wow, you blew me away. Not only did you deliver it, but you way over delivered. And one of the things I will tell you that, and I haven't said this in Podcast Answer Man before, I don't think, but the technology part of podcasting, the tech stuff, what microphones and how to plug in cables and all that stuff, that's not my greatest passion. In fact, I'm great at it. I know a lot, and I'm able to communicate it and share it and teach it to people in an amazing way. And I'm incredibly thankful to God for that gifting. I don't know how it came, but I am incredibly thankful for the gift that I have to teach people these complex things. But my true passion in life is to help people take not just their podcast and get that recorded, but to really take their message, their business, and their life to a whole new level, to dream bigger dreams, to really expand the mindset. It's not how to get a podcast online, but what you can do with that podcast. It's not just how to get more downloads, but what can you do to really have a positive influence in the lives of the people who listen to your podcast. It's not just how can I monetize my podcast, but how can you create a business that will serve you well, whether you have a podcast or not. How can you actually create products and services? These are the kinds of things. And so one of the things that I will tell you is over the years, I've had this little bit of a dream in my heart. And that dream has been to kind of get to the place where one day I would be recognized as a life and career coach. And part of me thinks, I've gone to my mastermind groups, I've gone to my business advisors, and all of them kind of say the same thing. You don't want to kill the golden goose, Cliff. I mean, come on, don't just up and leave this podcasting consulting thing. And I've never really thought about leaving the podcast consulting thing, but man, one of the things that really is in my heart is to really be a life and career coach to people, to help people take where they are in their journey and their mindset and just move them forward. And so one of the things that happened recently, and it was David Jackson interviewed me on his podcast, and he says, Cliff, do you ever see a day where down the road you might actually, just go out and you're known as a life coach? And I responded to him, and it was the first time I think I said it in a recording somewhere. I've talked to the people about this, but I said, you know what, David, I am a life coach. I am a life and business and career coach. I am one. And that was the first time I said it into a microphone. And it's true, because and this is what I've realized, I can actually do both. And the reality is that trying to convince somebody to sign up for my 4-week course so that I can help positively change your life, or come sign up for my course so that I can help you take your message, your business, and your life to a whole new level. Come sign up for my 4-week course so that I can help you, expand the way that you think about what's possible online to really make your life better. For whatever reason, I have a hard time thinking of actually creating that kind of a marketing page. But what I do know is this: people come to me because they need to learn how to hook up the wires. They need to know what the settings are on the mixer. They need to know how to set up an RSS feed. They need to know answers to all these little questions. And that's what brings them into the door. And I'm happy to share those things with them. But what happens is during the course of a 4-week period of time, I'm able to give them so much more. And the things that I find are so much more important and go well beyond, well, how do you hook the thing up? Because guess what? You can hook the thing up, you can get it. But if you don't really have a clear plan of what you want to do with your podcast, it's probably not going to make it past that 7th episode. So anyway, I share all that to say that podcasting A to Z is probably a little bit more than what you actually see on the sales page of all the things that I tell you that you're going to get in the course. And now that I've shared that, you should check out the testimonials. You should check out the testimonials on there. And you know what? I was going to play Anthony Tran's 2 minute and 56 second testimonial, the audio of it here. And all I will do is instead tell you, I've talked too long, but go to Podcasting A to Z. A brand new testimonial has been placed on there. Look for the one from Anthony Tran, Marketing Access Pass. I just added it, and it's great, the things that he had to say about the course. But if you're ever wondering how on earth, I've had so many people, and I'm going to click real quickly here, how on earth is it that I've had so many people sign up for this course, and not once since March of 2011 have I ever had a single person ask for a refund, that they weren't happy, they didn't get what they wanted. And by the way, the September course will be my 18th session. I've had 390 students in this course. At 390 students, not a single refund asked. And it's because I deliver way more than just teaching you how to podcast. So anyway, go over to podcastingatoz.com and know this. Next week, I'll be announcing my first ever live one-day event. But anyway, if you're looking to start a podcast, podcastingatoz.com. God bless. I'm out of here. See you next week.
Podcast. It's a man.